Called Thursday, June 25th, City Commission meeting to order. First item on the agenda, a review of the June 11 minutes. Any changes?
None.
I have none.
Dan has written. Next item on the agenda, May 2020 financial statement.
Thank you. This is a report of the financial summaries for the City of Haze, month ended May 31, 2020. May revenue totaled $2,282,947. That's an increase of $104,000 when we compare to this time last year. Notable areas of increased revenue: transient guest tax was up $184,500. That's simply due to the timing of the receipt of those quarterly distributions from the state. Golf course revenue increased $6,400 when we compare to a year ago. A couple of decreases of note: bond proceeds and capital projects fell $65,000. That's due to the issuance last year for the Kingsgate Park Special Assessment District. And in May, residential water consumption fell 5.4%, with business off 31%. That translated into total revenue down 6.5% for the month. And year-to-date total consumption is up 2.3%, with revenue up right at 6%. Expenditures in May totaled $1,941,425. That's an increase of a little over $12,000 compared to a year ago. This is net of two large entries that we describe later. Given those were non-recurring expenditures, we felt that this was more indicative of the actual month's expenditures. So some increases. The one large one is the large entry in capital projects you probably saw, which included the $7.1 million payment to KDOC for the North Fine Corridor. Airport other contractuals and general supplies were up $23,500 as compared to a year ago for the purchase of new signage at the entrance and in the interior, as well as airline consultant fees. New equipment reserve increased $58,000 due to the budgeted purchase of two new pickups, one each for the service division and parks. Those are also outfitted to operate in snow removal operations. Special highway expenditures rose $220,000 when compared to this time last year for the ongoing street maintenance program. Some notable areas of decreased expenditure. The other large item referred to was the receipt of the $3.4 million from the revolving loan for the wastewater treatment facility at this time a year ago. That appears as a credit to expenditures and capital projects. Fleet maintenance expenditures fell $16,600, led by the decrease in fuel costs when compared to a year ago. Year-to-date, fuel is down $14,800. Stormwater management was off $130,600, due mainly to the final debt service payment on the 12th Street project a year ago. Water taps, hydrants, meters expenditures were down $8,600 for the water fund due to purchase of meters and couplings last year. And the water reserve expenditures were off $144,000 due to work on the Elm, Ash, and 4th Streets. A little bit about sales tax. We talked about this at the last meeting. Here's some more detail though. Month-to-date general fund sales tax collections were at $573.91. That's a decrease of only $20,819, or negative 3.5% compared to last year. Year-to-date collections are to $3,121,179, up $132,469, or 4.4%. The 6-month average is at 5.7%. That's an increase of 3.6% when compared to a year ago. Given the stay-at-home restrictions began in the middle of March, so May receipts are March's collections. We originally projected May receipts to be down about 20%, and that turned out to be only 3.5%, so we were pretty happy about that. So that's a $97,000 trend upward from the projected. The reported quarter-to-date top 10 by classification was up 123,000, or 7%. The largest categorical increase there was merchant wholesalers, up 44%. Building material and garden supply, up 33%. Some of the more expected decreases due to those stay-at-home orders included food services and restaurants, down 6.5%, clothing stores down 16%, and accommodation off negative 23%. So before I get to the investments, we did have new numbers this week. I think the assistant did send you some emails, but another bit of good news. Even though it's negative, it's good news. We had projected the receipts to be 30% down. It turned out they were only about 5% down, so we're very happy about that.
He doesn't smile very often, but he smiles when he gives us those numbers.
That's well, it's one of those few times it's good to be wrong.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
that's a turnaround of about another $150,000. So we're pretty happy about that. And so I did a little report that you have at your desk there. This is similar to the industry classification that I talked about, only it's not a quarter-to-date report. It's for May and June. So like we talked, this would be March and April. When you think back, March was about a half a month of the COVID, and then April's the full month. So on that report, those top 10 were down about 3.7% or 47,000. And again, as typical and as we thought, the ones that are down are the restaurants, 30%, the used car dealer, new and used car dealer down 23%, accommodation off 54%, clothing, shoes, jewelry stores off 57%. And then surprisingly, building material and garden supply are up 55%. And the one thing that kind of complements that is the merchant wholesalers. They were up about 31.5%. So that helped those categories recover a little. And then Toby asked earlier about online shopping, and so that category is called electronic shopping, and so that does have Amazon in it. And on that report, we see that that's up 56%. So some good news there. And so we've changed our projection a little, and we'll just wait to see what happens. And then the portfolio certificates of deposit on May 31, 2020 totaled $53.05 million with a weighted average interest rate of 1.57. That's down 90 basis points. So from a year ago, we're almost down a full percent now. Total U.S. Treasuries at par value of 1.477 with a weighted average yield of maturity of 1.59. Total balance of the money market account on May 31 was $1.5 million with a current yield of a whopping 5 basis points. Total investments are down $7,473,000 when compared to this time last year, but that includes that KDOT payment of $7.1 million.
I'll make a motion that we accept the May 2020 financial statement.
Seconded.
Have a motion second. Any comments? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is citizen comments. Next item on the agenda would be the consent agenda, cereal malt beverage license.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda would be Fort Hays State University President, Dr. Tisa Mason. Welcome.
Good evening. It is so fabulous to be gathered here with you in person. I really want to start by the most important message, and that's to say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership during this very difficult time. And thank you for your continued strong partnership with Fort Hays State University. We have been working hard, as you know, keeping our employees all employed because we know that's important in the local economy. We've been working hard to make sure that this fall we are going to be delivering classes in China, internationally, online, and definitely on campus at Haze for Fort Hays State University. Of course, some of the things will change. Just like you, we'll be making sure we have safe environments such as social distancing, masking when it is required or encouraged in some areas, and lots of cleanliness protocols. We're working through all of that. Our academic calendar will not change. We are moving forward with Residence Life. We'll have all kinds of activities that we always have, from internships and undergraduate research, fraternities, sororities, housing, student government, and athletics. And in fact, if you're interested, on August 29th, if you support cross country, we'll have our Sand Plum Alumni Open. Our first volleyball game is tentatively scheduled for Friday, September 11th. Women's soccer will play Emporia State either Friday, September 11th or Sunday the 13th. Football first home game is Saturday, September 12th versus Lincoln at 7 p.m. And men's soccer, Harding at 6 p.m. on Thursday, September 24th. So we are ready to go. Things are changing as we learn more and more about the environment. We're working hard. Safety's our number one, but we expect to have a fully vibrant campus. Our enrollment is up this summer, so we're happy. You know, this fall is a critical one. I don't know that we'll make it, but it will be our 20th consecutive year of enrollment if we can do it. So we're working hard, delivering excellent programs, fabulous, innovative faculty. So I'm happy to stand for questions, but I want you and our citizens and our businesses to know that Fort Hays State will have a very strong, vibrant, on-campus student life.
I don't have any questions, just thank you for what you're doing. I know you've been through a lot, almost daily, what you guys are trying to do, your whole organization. Just thank you what you're doing, bringing students back to Fort Hays and, you know, what you're doing for our community, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I kind of the same way. I really appreciated some of the actions that the foundation took to do some things for the kids that had to get out of the campuses. I know they raised some quick money quickly. I thought that was wonderful. I have just one question. Do we have any early indication of online enrollment for the fall? Not online, sorry, on campus.
On campus? We are still enrolling students. We are down a little bit. Some of our, I think nationally, everybody's waiting to see the plan. So we're not concerned about that. We are working hard because we believe in being proactive. So we are calling all of our students, telling them that we're ready. We miss them. I'm in the middle of an empty campus. I can't wait to see everybody on campus. My dog's looking forward as well as she looks out the door and says, "Where are those students?" But we feel really good about it. We know that we have a caring, innovative. Nobody can do innovation like Fort Hays can in education. And so the students are going to see some really cool new things that are going to be helpful to them as they continue their learning. That will help support them in days that they might not feel good. They're not going to be punished for that. They're going to be lifted up in a very caring environment. So we're really excited to have them back.
When you're talking to them, tell them there's a very anxious business community ready to employ them as well.
Well, we are happy to have them employed on campus and in the community.
Good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, you and your teams both for working so hard to get us back to where, or hopefully 20 years, get us back to where we were. Working really hard to keep it safe and continue to bring those students back. I know Fort Hays is just a huge part of this community, so to keep Fort Hays up and running during this time, it's a task that I don't wish for myself, so thank you for doing that for us and you and your teams, and keeping the people employed at Fort Hays during this too is a huge part to our community, so thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's part of our ethic of care, and I don't know about you, but I'm really happy I'm living in Ellis County right now.
Absolutely.
Me too.
Absolutely.
One question I kind of have, as far as masking policies for Fort Hays, I think K-State and Kayuu have both come out and said that masks will be required. Is that something Fort Hays will look at individually, or is that something the Board of Regents will determine for all universities?
Thus far, the Board of Regents has been really good about working with us and allowing us to make decisions based on our community, which I think Jason Kennedy would tell you is a good thing. Right now where we are, the CDC definitely encourages masks, so we will encourage masks, especially for those that are vulnerable and those who need to. We will continue to encourage people. We will not require them unless it is a class that needs to have them required. So just like on the syllabus, you might have to not be able to use your cell phone in class. You may have to have a mask in certain classes because of the content of that class. In such a case, we'll have a box right there, so if you forget it, just put it on, do class, and leave. So we are still working through that. Who knows, things may change, but at this point, we will always encourage people to do what's best for their health, for the health of their friends, but we will not have a firm requirement at this time. It kind of reminds me of the smoking policy. It's hard to enforce.
Yeah.
What you want is a caring culture, and that's what we're focusing on.
Thanks for coming and presenting and giving us an update. I'm looking forward to Hays being back in town. And Hays is the lungs of our town. When school is in session, there's just a different, fuller feeling to our community. So
Thank you.
absolutely looking forward to getting through summer and getting on students back in town. So
Thank you.
I'd like to echo the same thing the rest of the commissioners have said. I do have one question, and that's with your social distancing. with anticipating, a good on-campus student enrollment, is that going to cause problems with the dorms? Are you going to have enough dorms to support the number of students?
We believe so. We are allowing double rooms, so people know this. There's enough room to live together should they want to do that. So there'll be both singles and doubles, as there always have been. Our guidance, and we have worked very closely with Haze Med as well as Jason Kennedy. Our guidance is our ratio that is based on number of students per restroom. So there'll be some rooms that we'll skip. We are also keeping one wing of McMidas Hall for quarantine. Again, working with the hospital and with student health. They've been phenomenal, and Jason Kennedy. So again, our local people have been really helpful in guiding us. So we will lose some beds, but we still think that we are able to house students that need to be housed or want to be housed. And I know that the community also has opportunities for student housing as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
Thank you.
And as we discussed before, maybe after school's back in session, you can come give us an update how things are going if you have time.
I would love to. I always have time for y'all, so anytime you want me to come back, just give me a yell and I'll be here as soon as I can.
Okay, we'll definitely do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, 2020 State Legislative Session Review, Representative Barb Washington and Senator Rick Billinger. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. I want to make it clear that I usually defer to the senator, and he insisted that I go first, so I did not run in front of him. As you know, we had a very shortened first part of the session. We did sine die on March 19th, and everyone went home. Then we came back for a special session. So I'll start with the special session and start working back, and the senator can add to this. The biggest thing that was taken on was House Bill 2016, and that was to determine how exactly all the COVID funds from the federal government, from the CARES Act, would be taken care of, so that the governor is mostly in charge, but she has to talk to the State Finance Council. So we have some checks and balances. Not that we don't believe that she won't spend them properly, but we wanted to make sure that everyone had a voice, that the legislature, since it was shut down so soon, that we could make sure that our voices were heard as well as hers. And that's always a good thing when you have all the different branches of government working together. Part of it says that she cannot close any businesses before September 15th. She can only do it for 15 days before she needs to ask for any kind of extensions. We all know how awful it has been to shut down a lot of businesses, and I think in particular out here in western Kansas, since we've practiced social distancing since 1863, it was a little discouraging for a lot of our downtown businesses, particularly that didn't have very many people coming in saying that they couldn't open. So that was part of the reasoning behind giving some restrictions to the governor and not just allowing everything to shut down. And the same thing as schools. The Kansas Association of School Boards has to agree with what the governor wants to do. So we're involving more people in these discussions because obviously it impacted Kansas in a great way. They also changed the penalty of not complying with social distancing. It used to be a Class A misdemeanor, and they changed it to a civil penalty. I have to say, I don't know of many people that got any kind of tickets. Mostly, particularly around here, our law enforcement was very kind. They would stop and say, yeah, this isn't such a good idea. Maybe some of you should leave. So I'm really proud of both the Haze Police Department and the Ellis County Sheriff, because that was true community policing and not what we've heard in the across the United States, that people are saying that the police are doing such a terrible job. I think ours were stellar and did a wonderful job. It provides for business liability protection, giving an affirmative defense for nursing homes and first care, first responders, hospitals have a better liability protection. I know that people were upset about the affirmative defense for nursing homes, but what it means is they have the right. Let me make sure I'm saying this correctly. An affirmative defense allows you to say, I had to do this because of COVID. They had to, put down more restrictions. So I think it still encompasses what the nursing homes and adult care facilities needs. They put in a Contact Tracing Privacy Act so that this information was kept quiet. People were really concerned, and as they should be, that they were losing some of their private rights as citizens and having it spread out that, Barb had COVID and she went to all these meetings. They were keeping things more contained, alerting people, and that was a really good part of the bill. It allows for telemedicine to continue until, I think, September. And so a big thing for realtors and title people was that the notary acts were all considered to be legal, since you didn't have to be in person to have your signature notarized. So that was another one. Emergency licensures has relaxed. These are all, I guess, telemedicine and bed limits for hospitals and critical care centers has been relaxed so that they can have more beds used for any kind of patients. That all goes to January 26th of 21, and the purpose behind that was also to allow the new legislature to have some input on whether or not these all should stay or go. I know that particularly with telemedicine, I've had a telemedicine visit, and it really has helped, and I think a lot of the things that we were forced to do during COVID will continue in maybe a little bit different way, shape, or form, but I think this wasn't all for naught. It continues with video conferencing, so you don't have to have everyone into the courtroom. Sale of alcohol, which all of the restaurateurs and people who are selling alcohol in their establishments are able to seal up containers and let people take them home, which is the relaxation of our alcohol, our ABC rules. And I think that's something that's going to have to be looked back into so that it can continue. If we haven't had an influx of tremendous problems with people bringing sealed alcohol products home, perhaps that should continue. And then they waived a lot of, waived a lot of unemployment rules in this act. And special session, by its definition, is usually just one certain bill that you're discussing, one certain area, and it was really all for COVID relief and trying to figure out how we were going to do this and how we were going to work together on it. That's kind of the instead of me talking the whole time, I thought I'd let the senator come up and add some things from regular session. And I'll just tell you two things that I was disappointed in regular session. One is the House and Senate passed a bill for the Kansas Scholarship Promise Act for foster care kids to get scholarships. And it also allowed for tracking of their academic progress from 6th grade to 12th grade. We know that the state is having problems keeping track of kids. This is another way to help keep track of kids, make sure they're going to school, give them a chance to go into any kind of further schooling, but it was vetoed by the governor. That was very disappointing. And for the second year in a row, we tried to pass a bill that would start lowering the food sales tax. She vetoed both of them. So those are two really big disappointments for me, along with the value of them both amendment. But you just keep going, and the biggest problem, I think, was not taking care of these foster kids. I wrote it down. The House passed it 110 to 3. It was really a bipartisan effort. Everyone there thought it was hugely important because we've really not taken care of our foster kids. And the Senate passed it 36 to 3. So it wasn't a Democrat, it wasn't a Republican bill, it was something that everyone came together and agreed upon. So those were a couple of my disappointments through the regular session, and I'll social distance from the senator and I will let him speak so I don't talk about everything. But thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. It's nice to be back.
Barb, I just want to thank you for reaching out to, I know some of the businesses you reached out to me when we were going through this, just how things were going and, loans and stuff like that. And just appreciate you caring and, taking the time to reach out to,
Well, thank you.
local business owners.
Well, that's part of the job.
Yep.
That's why I get
appreciate
paid the big bucks.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Barb, I have one question
Yes,
before.
ma'am.
You started out saying that the governor cannot close businesses before September 15th?
Yeah.
That's as soon as she can do anything, no matter what happens.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
All right. Thanks
so
for
much
having
for
us. I
coming.
appreciate it. I'll let the senator come up.
Senator, thank you.
Senator came farther than you did, Barb.
I know. And he made me
Well, good evening, and thank you for the invitation. Really appreciate the opportunity to kind of visit about what did transpire in the last year. And as Barb mentioned, it was a rather quick session that once the coronavirus hit, everything was put kind of on the front burner, and kind of some of the things that we really wanted to see completed didn't get completed. And Barb mentioned a couple of those. One of them that probably is a big interest to you, and I know it is to the county commissioners, is the tax lid. We did pass legislation that did away with the tax lid, but it was vetoed. So numerous items that we did pass were vetoed. So, and similar to what Barb had said, it wasn't that it wasn't a bipartisan vote on the tax lid either. That legislation passed very strong. So that was disappointing. Early on, we made sure that we took care of the budget, because that is our only requirement, is to pass a budget. And so when the coronavirus got really bad, it was put on the front burner, and it was like, we've got to get this done. And we made sure that we took care of capers. So let the employees of the city know that the capers is funded. With shortfalls, it may take some hits along the way, as well as others, because there are large amounts of money that a lot of times get targeted when we have shortfalls. One of the things that we did get through and that did pass and was a commitment to Kayuu Cancer Center. And at the Kayuu Cancer Center, we'd committed $5 million a year a few years back, and we did an additional $5 million this year. With this money, it'll let them apply, and they'll get up to the status of like your Mayo and your top cancer facilities in the country. So really proud that we were able to do that. When we passed the budget, and I want to thank Representative Wassinger, because she helped push this through over in the House to make sure that we were able to get some money into the budget for the IDD community, the intellectually developmental disabled. They testified before our budget committee that they're losing their help because they couldn't pay enough. They were losing help to Chick-fil-A for $12 an hour, $12 an hour. So we were able to put money in the budget at the end of this, end of the session when we passed the budget, to allow them to put a dollar additional per hour raise for the folks working in those communities. We also were successful in getting some money in the budget to get mental health back here in Haze for our youth. And I'm hoping that this will happen sooner rather than later, especially with the coronavirus. It's really tough on a lot of these young kids. So I'm hoping that we can get this expedited a little more. One of the issues that I've been dealing with recently is unemployment. The folks that are trying to file and receive benefits. And we've had a terrible time at the state level with people trying to get on the internet, file, or phone, no one answering. And so it's really taken a lot of time. It's worth it because these folks all have paid in and they need the help. You know, they have house payments or rent and car payments and food and kids and you know, they've got a lot of challenges and we've really dropped the ball at the state level, and I want to apologize to anyone that's been hurt by not being able to get their unemployment that they're rightfully due. I'm hoping that we continue to make some adjustments that we can get some of this handled a little bit quicker and get folks back on that. Barb mentioned that we were called back for a special session. You know, and a lot of this is politics, which I'm not into politics, so I don't. But we basically went back and did the same bill that we worked 24 hours on, except there was a few new restrictions put on the governor. And what she really got out of it were three things. One thing, we were trying to put protections in for the folks that work at our hospitals, our EMS, you know, our emergency personnel, making sure that they weren't going to be held liable for someone that had the coronavirus. Well, there were three groups that the governor wanted out of that bill. So we took out the folks that work at long-term care facilities. We didn't protect them. We took them back out of that bill. So we went back to take those out. We took the folks out that work at the IDD communities, our most vulnerable citizens. We didn't want to protect them. And we took our community colleges out. We didn't want to protect them. Thank God Fort Haze was left in. But, you know, it's just, you get back there and you take these out and you go, we come back here and spend all this money to take these three groups out? That's what it was about. And something else that's happened that's very disturbing, we kind of followed New York when it comes to our long-term care facilities. The state of Kansas mandated that these facilities take folks with the coronavirus. Mandated. Cannot and should not turn them away. We're trying to investigate now to see how many folks were actually brought in with the virus and if it could have spread through the facilities. But that's pretty disturbing when you find those type things out. And pretty disappointing, especially after we've seen what happened in the larger cities like New York. I think Barb touched on most all this other stuff. I guess I'd just stand for some questions if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions. Just thank you. Thank you for the update. I do appreciate it very much.
Thank you for your service, and thanks for coming out so far to talk to us tonight.
It's not so far out there.
No, I enjoy coming to Haze. It's one of my favorite places. I went to school here, and when my wife and I left Haze in 1975, we moved to Goodland. And our plan was to be in Goodland maybe 2 or 3 years, and then we were coming back to Haze.
That was my plan for Haze.
Yeah, that's 45 years ago.
We'll still take you.
Yeah, we're always taking more.
Thank you for coming. I do appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And like I said, I always enjoy this. I know Barb does too. To come back and this is part of home. So thank you again.
Appreciate it
both very much.
Thank you, Senator.
All right, next item on the agenda, property liability coverage renewal 2021.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kim Rupp, Director of Finance, here to discuss the property liability coverage renewal for 2020-2021. As you may recall, we changed from Brit Insurance to Midwest Public Risk back in 2017. This chart shows a historical perspective of our annual premium. Our broker did poll the marketplace, and both Brit and Travelers, who we've had insurance with before, declined to quote as they could not provide a competitive bid. The renewal for 2021 amounts to $245,345. That is an increase of just over $17,000 compared to last year. There were 2 areas that resulted in that increase. Contents insured values increased $4.2 million, mainly due to the new equipment at the newly reconstructed wastewater facility. The other area was in payroll liability. The $2.1 million increase in value was a correction to this property description as a result of review by NPR. Payroll liability should include salaries, overtime, and employer-provided health insurance. It was discovered that the value of the employer-provided health insurance was not included in the total insured values for that coverage. And then finally, the decrease in buildings insured values was the result of an adjustment to the water production facility reappraisal that was conducted back in 2018. Wanted to review a little bit about NPR. NPR is a pool of public entities that include cities, counties, schools, health departments, fire protection districts, ambulance districts, election boards, and housing authorities. Their service goes beyond just property and liability coverage, as they are a true prevention advisor for us. They also offer facility and work practice reviews, which our risk manager is in contact with me periodically. They offer online and site-based training with our police department. They took good advantage of that this past year, saving about $2,000 in online training expenditures. I've been pleased with NPR's response over this year, and the third-party claims processing has been seamless as well. Last week, we had our broker, Charlie Hare, with A.J. Gallagher on the phone, and thought I'd review a little bit about what he discussed. When speaking about the industry as a whole, Charlie had indicated that Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria have significantly impacted the marketplace with large losses, but also they're estimating a $203 billion loss brought on about by effects of COVID. A 30% increase of governmental entities have became commonplace in 2020, as well as large deductible increases. Because pools utilize an alternative risk funding mechanism, the increase at the pool level was far better. And as we mentioned, our previous 2 carriers elected not to quote as they could not offer a competitive bid. I have learned that Dodge City did go out for a full bid and is remaining with NPR as well. There's a national pool that covers community colleges, and they have astronomically increased their deductibles from $10,000 to $300,000 per property, and so those entities are coming to NPR as well. So it's all over from what I can tell. So that's all I have about that. Options this week would be renew the policy with NPR, or if you choose not to, provide us with other guidance. We are asking that you authorize the city manager to renew with NPR.
I move we authorize You got to go back.
Sorry.
I had it memorized for a second.
Fat finger.
Authorize the city manager to renew the 2020 to 2021 property liability coverages with the NPR package in the amount of $245,345.38 to be funded from the intergovernmental insurance and surety line item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Kim, I have a question. When it says they expected 203 billion on the COVID loss, okay, that started March. When did this bid go out?
Well, we didn't actually formally bid.
Oh, okay, so-
But they
I'm
were polling around the February, March timeframe, February, March, April.
And they were already expecting by then that much loss for
Evidently
COVID.
nationwide, you know, you
Right,
gotta think
right.
nationwide, but
Just seems like an easy target. but-
There will be some insurers that won't survive this.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
that's the part that I continue to watch.
Yep.
And that number is probably small compared to what the loss is really going to be. And there will be some big ones that won't make it.
something that he did talk about I didn't mention was the fact that there's several carriers that are pulling out of Kansas, not COVID related, but just weather related.
Right.
They have chose not to be in the windy state, I guess, or tornado prone area and have pulled out. So
Really?
that contributes to our difficulty.
Oh, yeah.
What's the last claim that we've made or major claim that we've made with our insurance carrier
It was that August storm.
last year? Okay. And that
Yeah,
kind of
it
speaks
was
to why
pretty
insurance wants to get
sizable
out.
with police cars hailed on and
Okay.
damage to several properties.
Does that include like the ball fields, the fence out
It
there,
did.
and stuff like that?
The golf course.
Yeah, golf
had
course.
damage,
right.
yes.
Do they have an expectation for next year? So last year, reading through again the notes, we expected that the increase would be fairly hefty this year, 7.5. Any idea how that translates to next year? Because they were using 2018 losses, hurricanes, which took essentially 2 years to kind of get the
Right.
premiums up. So
I have not heard. Some of what we were expecting last year for this year had to do with the reappraisal as well. Our values increased quite a bit. It was kind of a necessary evil. We hadn't had that reappraisal for the 12, 13 years I've been here, so that was something NPR chose to do. They paid for that, but it was well needed. We were below where we needed to be. We had some exposure. And so that was some of the increase that you read about that we were expecting, and that really didn't materialize. NPR didn't have to increase like they thought they would. So.
And when was the last reappraisal before this one?
I don't
Before
know.
your time?
Wow.
I do not know.
That's interesting.
last week I asked about the 3% loss control credits, and you sent me some information. And just to clarify, that's not something that we opt in or out of based on our budget. It's something that NPR is essentially not offering this year because
It's
basically
a
on their
benefit.
side.
It's a benefit that has been offered over the years with NPR. So part of your contribution and language with a pool is a little different than the insurance industry as a whole, but our contribution is considered premiums. So when we pay our contribution in, they held out 3% of that, and we could submit claims for items that we purchased that helped our exposure or lower our risk in certain areas. We bought multiple desk risers. We bought new entry system for the City Hall here and Public Works. It purchased an AED for the CVB. So those are the sorts of things that we were able to buy with those dollars. Because of some budget constraints, that benefit was pulled for this next year here only. It will be reviewed in a year. But for now, we will not have that particular benefit, that 3%.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, Able Addition Final Plot. Mr. Rohr.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jesse Rohr, Director of Public Works. So the first of my two items tonight has to do with the consideration of the final plat for what's known as Able Addition. So this property is located on the west side of Vine Street at what we call 37th Street. And the property, most of us know it as the former Ambassador Hotel that was demolished in 2017. So this property has not previously been platted, but as the North Vine Street corridor improvements were being designed, and with all the changes to the lots, the right-of-way, easements, and streets, staff determined that platting would be a benefit to all parties involved. The plat includes 4 lots with 37th Street connecting Vine to Skyline Drive. The city Haze and adjacent property owners did work together and came up with this particular plat that incorporates the North Vine Street corridor project and hopefully increases the potential for redevelopment of the existing sites. So I do want to note that the plat itself does not create any lots or any right-of-way that doesn't currently exist today. They are all, like I say, all currently existing. The platting process, as I kind of mentioned, it primarily is being completed to have and allow for a better record of the subdivision and all necessary easements on the property. So anytime we get an opportunity to plat property that is unplatted, we do so even if it's not necessarily subdividing the property or creating additional right-of-way. It creates a record for future years that is much more workable for those that deal with the platted property. Before I move on, before I get away from the map here, are there any questions as pertain to the 4 lots and the right-of-way?
What are their zoning designations going to be?
It is all zoned currently. It's zone C2, which is our commercial general district. The zoning didn't change. It has been zone C2 for many, many years, and unless there's a request to change zoning, it will stay defined as C2. I do want to mention that the Planning Commission did unanimously vote to approve this plat. They were in favor of the plat as submitted. And these would be the options for you to consider this evening. And this is the action requested. Any other questions? Sorry.
I move we approve resolution number 2020-013, accepting the final plat of Able Edition.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, annexation of property located north of East 33rd and Sherman Avenue.
Okay, and this request is we had a request to annex some property, and the property owner, known as V&E Properties LP, do own the property north of 33rd and Sherman Avenue, and they've submitted a signed consent to annex and desire to annex for development of the property in connection to city services. This land, as you'll see on some of the sketches coming up, is contiguous to existing city limits. So here it just shows the general location of the property. And you can point out everything in the kind of the blue hues here is annexed property, and the brighter green colors are not annexed. So you can see there's just a pocket there outlined in red that is not annexed on the property there that lies south of I-70. So the request is for that entire area there to be annexed. This property has been owned by the current owner for many, many years and has been and is still being currently used as agriculture. Multifamily development has occurred on property to the east, as you can see just over here, within the last few years. And there is currently some similar development expected on a portion of this property once annexed. So, as I mentioned, showed the outline of the property. This is the last portion of the property that needs to be annexed into the city, which will allow for future development. And as you can see, something a little bit odd with this one, there is a 235-foot portion adjacent to 33rd Street that was annexed several years ago, I believe, with the improvements that were done to 33rd. And so that's already in the city, but the rest of it wasn't brought in. So now here we are requesting to annex the remaining portion. Approval of the annexation, as I mentioned, will allow the owner to receive full benefits of all city services, including utilities and fire and police protection. The property owner does plan to request a portion of the property be rezoned and platted, and in fact we have some of that going forward at the July Planning Commission meeting. I believe we have a public hearing scheduled for the rezoning, and we'll be reviewing the platting as well, both of which will come to this body if approved by the Planning Commission. So your options on this item, either annex the property as requested or not. And this will be the action requested. Any further questions?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 3986, annexing the property as legally described and located on East 33rd Street and Sherman Avenue to the city of Haze.
Second.
A motion and a second. Comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.
Next item on the agenda, public hearing to consider the creation of the Tallgrass Second Edition Rural Housing Incentive District. Do I go ahead?
Declare it open.
Okay, go ahead and declare that the public hearing is open.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kim Rupp again, Director of Finance. We are in receipt of an application for a rural housing incentive district from Heart of America Development Corporation. The Commission previously adopted a resolution making certain housing needs findings and determinations. Following adoption and publication, a resolution was sent to the Kansas Secretary of Commerce that was approved on, from a letter dated April 3rd. Next step is tonight's public hearing to consider the establishment of the RHID. Following the public hearing, the Commission will consider an ordinance which establishes the RHID, adopts the development plan, and authorizes the execution of the development agreement. The development agreement is entered into between the city and the developer to govern the rights and responsibilities of the parties. The Assistant City Manager will cover that a little bit. The ordinance will become effective following a 30-day veto period. This project involves the development of street and additional infrastructure to serve approximately 75 residential housing lots located northeast of the intersection of 22nd and Wheatland Avenue. The developer is requesting RHID financing on a pay-as-you-go basis, so no bonds would be issued. That's for a 24-year time frame. This map shows the site of the proposed housing development. NCK is to the west with 22nd to the south. Home values in this area will range from $175,000 to $225,000. Phase 1 of the project involves installation of infrastructure to support the development of 38 lots. Those are highlighted in yellow. Construction on Phase 1 is expected to begin fall of 2020 following the city's approval, and with single-family homes construction beginning later in 2020 or early 21. Phase 1 is expected to be completed approximately 24 to 36 months thereafter. Phase 2 of the project involves installation of infrastructure for 25 lots highlighted in blue on the map. Phase 2 would be started with Phase 1 is approximately 75% complete. And then Phase 3 involves installation of infrastructure for the development of 12 lots. That's highlighted in green on the map. No specific time frame was set forth for that regarding Phase 3. Financial feasibility is dependent on the remaining time left in the RHID. Total cost of the project is estimated to be $3,210,600. All of that eligible for RHID reimbursement. The term is 25 years with the RHID incremental property tax over the 25 years estimated to be $3,227,355.
Good evening, Colin Belzer, Assistant City Manager. So as Finance Director Rupp mentioned, I'll describe the development agreement in brief. So the development agreement establishes the expectations and responsibilities of each party. As I mentioned, this is much less complex than the D&J agreement that we did a few weeks ago, a month ago or so. Obviously no conveyance of property or involvement with the state of Kansas. So the primary elements, there's general provisions, which would be the construction schedule, infrastructure improvements, financing and termination, whatnot, and then the negotiated additions that I'll touch on. So in terms of the construction schedule, 125 and 10. So what that refers to is after passage of this ordinance, the developer, Heart of America, has 120 days to begin construction. I know they have already obtain the services of an engineer, so I believe that is on schedule. Within 5 years, they must have all the infrastructure improvements done, the internal infrastructure improvements, and then in 10 years, the entire project is scheduled to be complete according to the development agreement. Internal improvements, obviously road, sewer, water, stormwater. The internal infrastructure has to be approved to city specs, and when they are approved, they will be dedicated to the city for future maintenance and improvement. As part of the agreement, the developer will be providing a 1-year infrastructure warranty. Financing, as Kim Rupp said, the developer is financing this, and then the 110%, 120%. So the total project is estimated about $3.2 million. This agreement allows reimbursement not to exceed 110% of that number. That's because we're working with estimates. So, you know, we don't really know 100% so what it will cost, so that's why the 110% exists. 120% refers to each line item that's listed in Exhibit C that make up the $3.2 million, so they can't exceed 120% of each line item. The developer is permitted to adjust the eligible costs that are listed in Exhibit C with the written consent of the city manager. When it comes time for reimbursement process, the developer will submit a request for reimbursement, which is Exhibit E in the agreement. The reimbursement request has to be accompanied with invoices, bills, et cetera, to prove that the amount they're being reimbursed is eligible. The city has 30 days to respond, and then we will produce quarterly disbursements to Heart of America. Unlike some other agreements, the city is not collecting administrative fee associated with this. And then reimbursements for this can exist until all the eligible costs are accounted for, or 25 years after the establishment of the district. When it comes to termination and amendment, each party can terminate, but it must be provided in writing with 30-day notice. The other party has 30 days to try and rectify the situation of why there is a cause for termination. If it comes to it, there could be legal proceedings, dissolution of the district could actually happen, or the city could choose to withhold our HID funds until it's resolved. In terms of amendment, this is much simpler as well. This would require just written consent between both respective parties. So in this instance, it would be the city manager and the president of Heart America Corporation is how it's listed out today. So some negotiated additions that I want to touch on. We did ask the developer to include what's in the development agreement as a southern sidewalk. So the star is the location of the property, and the red line is that southern sidewalk. So most of those properties, if you can remember the map, the front of the houses will face north, where a sidewalk will be required. But along 22nd, it's not quite as clear in our development code, which I've talked with Public Works Director Jesse Rohr, and we're going to bring that up to a planning commission. It's been some time since we've had a development on a main arterial road. So, but they will be putting in that sidewalk from Wheatland to the eastern boundary. That is our HID eligible for expense, or to be reimbursed. And then we also added this multi-use path connection. It's the section in yellow. So as you know, we'll be doing a multi-use path in 2021. That's the blue line that's represented. That'll run from Haze Med to Haze Recreation. I want to stress that this is a commitment of Heart of America. It's not our HID eligible for reimbursement, so this is money that they are contributing out of their pocket. And won't be reimbursed, and it's up to $20,000, or not to exceed $20,000. And that's roughly what we estimate 50% of the entire yellow portion of the sidewalk.
That's the connection, okay.
Yes, just that. So your options are to approve the ordinance, decline to approve, or provide other direction. After you hear public comment and close the hearing, this will be the action requested to approve ordinance number 3987.
Do we have any public comment? Okay, do I have a motion to close?
Make a motion that we close the public hearing for Tallgrass second edition Rural Housing Incentive District.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Comments? Any comments? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0.
I move we approve the ordinance number 3987, establishing the Tallgrass Second Edition Rural Housing Incentive District, adopting the development plan, and authorizing the execution of the development agreement.
Seconded.
Got a motion and a second. Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, resolution designating the city's website as official city news outlet.
Again, Colin Belzer, Assistant City Manager. So back in March, we took the initial actions for this step. So the state of Kansas does require a newspaper to be designated as the official city publication, or at least a news source. A modification of that requirement is allowed by charter ordinance, and back in March 26, the governing body did approve Charter Ordinance 29. A charter ordinance must be adopted by 2/3 vote of the governing body, and then there's a 60-day protest period where if 10% of the electorate come in and provide a valid protest petition, then this charter ordinance would actually go to a vote of the public. That did not occur, so it became effective June 7th, 2020. In order to complete the process of designating the city website as our official news outlet or city publication, a resolution is required. So some considerations is there's obviously been a reduction in Haze daily news staff, which has made publication somewhat difficult at times. Many of these issues are time-sensitive publications, and being allowed to use the city website allows much more instantaneous upload of the information. It does not tie us to an outlet that is charging a fee. It obviously broadens the circulation and audience, and it will be on the website longer. Statute only requires ordinance to be published once in the paper, so it will be on one day, where this will have up for 2 weeks minimum. The resolution, as I said, will designate the city's website, but then it also designates the Haze Daily News in certain instances. What we will be creating is under Newsflash. It's a feature in our city website where people can sign up and receive news alerts. So some of you might already receive city news and information, road closures, etc. We'll create a legal publication where people can sign up and be notified each time a legal publication is posted, and it'll also be on the front page of the city website. You can click for more information and example what you'll see in gibberish, but this will be how the process will work. Average annual cost for legal publication is about $9,400, so we'll see much of those savings. In regards to tonight, so the resolution takes effect once this is passed, obviously, or once you pass a resolution, then this becomes effective. So we already have it scheduled to put up both ordinances that we passed tonight on the website tomorrow. All ordinances will be, or legal postings will be on the city website. The one difference that was brought up by Commissioner Melick is the RHID that you just passed. The legal publication will technically be the newspaper at the request of bond counsel, but every legal publish will be on the city website as well. So your options are adopt the resolution, decline to adopt, or provide staff other direction. And we are requesting that you approve the resolution.
Move we approve resolution number 2020-014, designating the city website as the official city news outlet and in limited circumstances, the Haze Daily News.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, progress. We had progress.
All right. So a few things that happened within the last month. Alley reconstruction. Service division crews completed the alley project behind Haze Chevrolet. This will help with drainage as well as kind of right now with North Vine Street corridor improvements. This was a needed enhancement. So these are before and then some after photos. A total of about 177 yards of concrete were placed for the project.
Colin, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
I know a couple of us commissioners, at least two of us, talked to a resident over there that had some issues. Has that been resolved, or have you heard anything? I haven't heard anything since.
Right. I know staff and the contractor, or well, I guess we didn't have, so staff visited with them during the process. Public Works Director Jesse Rohr and I drove by it last Friday when it rained real well. It seemed to be draining well, and I have not heard anything from Jesse about any issues. So
Looks good.
it does.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say that our city crew did that. They did a fantastic job. So, I mean,
Good point.
kudos to them. And I know all that was shot elevations to make sure that that water did go north. And I talked to Wayne and Haze Chevrolet, and he's very happy with that. So kudos to our crew that we have a lot of talented employees. So
My husband watches that all the time. He thinks we have the best concrete guys in the world. And every time one starts, he'll sit there and watch them. It's really a good job.
Fast.
Something else, Public Works or Service Division staff, is they did complete an erosion control project along West 27th. So this area had been damaged by extensive rainfall and required some work to repair. So these are some after photos of that. After the earthwork was corrected or modified, the area was seeded and topped with erosion control netting to secure soil from eroding further. So big transformation from before after. They also laid some concrete at the airport. This is, one, will help with snow removal in the long term. It'll much be easier for city crews to remove snow. And then also, as part of our airport projects we'll be doing, this will help access for people needing to get to certain parts of the airport while the various parts are closed to construction. And then they also replaced some concrete panels near Cody and Vine intersection. The Haze Fire Department conducted an annual training required by FAA, the Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting, or ARF, live burning. You can kind of see it maybe, but that's a plane that's being extinguished that's brought all the way from University of Missouri Fire and Rescue Training Institute. We also allow other firefighters from areas to come and train on this, and we had about 8 members of the Dodge City Fire Department present. The fire department also hosted the Kansas Fire and Rescue Training Institute's driver simulator trailer. So every member of the fire department participated. We also had members from other departments in the area come to the training as well. It simulates different road conditions and emergency scenarios. I'm a little disappointed they didn't ask me to participate. It looks kind of fun. Park. So Kiwanis Park, Kiwanis donated some money for a parent-child swing feature that was installed by park staff. I think it's been very popular. It's already being used, as you can see in the photo. The Bickel-Schmidt Sports Complex. So you approved this earlier. The shelter structure has been constructed over that. We're still waiting on the electric to get installed, but that's also part of that. That's been completed.
You know, I was out there Tuesday and there's just like a muddy mess around there. Is that something that they're going to work on later? Or I know they just constructed it.
Yeah. So we actually had a meeting today, Toby, Jeff Boyle, and myself, and yeah, they'll be pursuing concrete kind of around the whole area to improve
I know
it.
it just got done. It looks great. It just got done. So I just,
Yeah, I was out there. There was some mud.
When's the other equipment on the other quad going to be available? Because it was fenced off. I was out there last night, and people were asking me why it was still unavailable.
I will find out for you. I don't have that answer right now. I don't know if Toby does. Okay. All right. Vickles, also at the sports complex. So we talked about the wind damage that occurred last fall. So we've replaced those awnings with some steel siding instead of the fabric, so they're much stronger. So there's before and after photos of that. We also did some scoreboard repairs in anticipation of all the baseball and softball that'll be played this summer. And then also we installed some pollinator garden, or a pollinator garden, about 3 years ago, and this is the best they've looked, where you can really see some, biological and ecological diversity. The police department did, Chief Scheibler and Sergeant Bonchinsky were present during some of the recent demonstrations. Show support. And then also, police department attended a Knights of Columbus First Responders picnic. Water Resources installed a new fire hydrant along East 7th Street. The new hydrant is to comply with ISO requirement, which requires approximately 1 hydrant per 600 linear feet. They also installed the shade hexagon. So this is the east primary clarifier, where essentially there's chlorine residuals that must be maintained, and with weather changing, clouds, etc., the hexagons kind of stabilize that chlorine residual. Turf conversions are still going on. This is an example of a homeowner that's going to be changing their yard to Bermuda. We've also been here and talked about the buffalo grass program, so we've done 5 pre-inspections for that. The Convention and Visitors Bureau staff has presented and participated in some Travel Industry Association of Kansas highlights. One was a virtual meeting with U.S. representatives on relief efforts for the travel industry. CVB also conducted some June photo shoots to update some marketing material of local attractions. That's Brandon Cooley with CVB taking, these were completely stage photo, like, you know, wasn't like they were out there during hours. They organized all these photo shoots. Might be weird just to show up with the camera. Some upcoming events. There will be a softball tournament this weekend. They're estimating about 85 teams, last I heard. 4th of July on the bricks. You can go to wildwestfestival.com or downtownhaze.com, see about those events, and then Ellis County Fair. Project management, a new 8-inch water main from 5th to 7th Street has been laid. Much of it was directionally bored, so that's really why you only see a little bit of concrete that was needed to cover up the project. It was part of the 2019 water improvements. M&D has been working on some storm sewer improvements on Canal Street. This is part of the 2020 street maintenance program before they anticipate of replacing the east 2/3 of the pavement from 23rd to 27th on Canal. 48th Street water line. This is a project that will provide redundant water supply to areas north of I-70. The contractors from Nebraska came back after temporary leaving due to COVID-19. They will finish their work. They finished the work on 48th and are currently working on the bypass connection, so that should be done shortly. Haze Regional Airport has rebranded the building. You should go out there and take a look. It looks really sharp. On the left is the sign at the entrance, and then the name of the facility at the entry, or the awning. And then North Vine Street. So last month we showed you kind of some mock-ups, so now I'm sure you've seen them actually installed by city staff. The Partner Progress signs and then our business signs. The contractor has torn up the east side of the west frontage road, as you can see in the right picture. Something we're going to do, Brandon Cooley with CVB, we have a drone, so we're going to do occasional drone shots to track progress of this. So you can see on the left, obviously that's that image of the frontage road, and they've started pouring concrete, and I believe they should have that section of the frontage road, at least the concrete poured into this week, early next week, but then there's still some sealing and curing that has to occur before they can open it. And then they've obviously also started tearing up 32nd and 33rd. That's been compacted, and that should be poured shortly too. They plan to move on to Main or Vine Street, the main portion of that project, late July or early August. Any questions?
A lot of good progress.
Lots of progress.
Commissioner Millick, you have anything?
I'd just like to say that we're having a flare-up of this COVID thing again nationwide, so I just want to encourage everybody to be careful.
Commissioner Burgess?
Nothing this evening.
Commissioner Reuter?
I have nothing.
I just want to echo Commissioner Melick. I think we've done such a wonderful job here, and it's so very important to keep our economy going and keeping things moving. So I hope everybody continues. The vulnerable population, I am one of. You know, we need to care for ourselves, but we need to think about our whole economy and the future of this community. So please be safe and practice social distancing as much as you can.
Yeah, I would agree. I talked with Keith Smith out at the ball fields Tuesday, and he was telling me about the tournaments this weekend, how well everything went, and had some people from Denver, and they loved our area here, so they'll definitely be back. So that's good for our community. Had some customers in my store couldn't get a hotel room here. Went to Ellis because we were full, which is unbelievable. But unfortunately, you know, there's a big tournament this weekend, which you know, my daughter's actually involved in. But it is scary. I mean, the more people come, the more chances this is going to flare up. Just like I encourage people in my business, if you don't feel comfortable coming out, we'll wait. You know, stay home. And all the businesses in town, I believe, are doing their best to keep stuff clean and healthy for people. But you know, the more we get together, it's probably going to happen for a while. So just be smart and respect, you know, what people's opinions on what they believe in. So we're adjourned.
Colin?